Hello, everybody, and welcome to Silent Podcast, the place to where everything but silent. I'm your host, Isaiah, back again with the Bounce Checks podcast to talk about some Big Brother 24. I was out the country in Bermuda last week, so I was not there. But we have Katie and Josie who took over the show and did whatever the hell they wanted to do with the tier list. So here we are. But before we get into that, we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine. We've podcasted before, but we have not done it on Silent Podcast. So we have Azah. Azah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. What's up? What's up?
How are you feeling? How's everything? I know you've been busy on Challenge. You've been busy in these BB streets, and I've been seeing the advertisement for the cooking stuff. I'll be seeing, but
Oh, thank you.
how are you?
I've been good. I've been in the challenge streets. I've been in the streets as well, just in general. I've just been enjoying this summer. It's been like, it's a beautiful day today, but it's just been so like nice, like just generally in this area and you see where I'm at. So I'm enjoying the summer for everything that it is. Yeah.
All right, and for our panel, as usual, we have Katie. Katie, what's going on?
Not too much. Super excited to be here. Azah, thank you again for just being here with us and talking through this crazy show and the crazy weeks that have already passed and the crazy week that's to come. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you.
All right, and Josie.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here and in the presence of Azah herself, the icon, the legend, the queen. And we're going to be talking about Big Brother. So it's all in all a good time. And I can't wait to talk about it. We know who's HOH now. And it's looking like a good week for us BB Twitter folk. Let's just say that.
Yeah, so I didn't get to fully check everything out from last week, but Katie, Josie, how did everything go in terms of everything? I know it's wild. We just watched Daniel have one of the most biggest downfalls ever. What was going on?
Yeah, I think we started off last week's podcast, Isaiah, by saying, first of all, you guys were crazy to give us the keys. And second of all, it's a good thing that we don't have exit press this season because we would lose the rights because there's nothing we would have been able to hold back from Nicole and Daniel in these past few weeks. But we had a great time last week. A few people fell from grace from our A tier down to a B or a C. A lot of changes on that tier list from week over week.
Yeah, I think last week was really crazy, especially with Kyle. I think Kyle played a really big part in shifting the way I think people view him and the overall dynamics of the house and what really was the true nature and intention behind the leftovers. We were taught one thing and then it looked like it may have been another thing. So it was kind of a crazy 180. But now it's a Taylor HOH. So our girl is safe for one more week. She broke the first juror curse. So I love that for Black women. So I'm here for it. But yeah, last week was a wild ride.
Azza, so for you, I mean, obviously, this is technically your second time because you got to watch BB Celebrity. But now that this is like technically your first time getting to experience like being an alumni like outside of the show for an actual season, I mean, how do you think it differentiates like your perspective when you used to be a fan for it?
So I will have to say that my perspective changed just in general from as soon as I got in the house last year. So I had a lot of, I give a lot of opinions on things. I call people, oh, this is a horrible player. This is a great player. They're not playing the game. They know how to play the game. And then when I got in the house, I was like, oh, okay, this is very difficult. This is super hard. And I was humbled very quickly. So I guess I would probably talk about how. So when I watch the game now, I try to remove as much emotion as I can from watching the characters, and I just literally just try to watch it like I'm watching a chessboard and just watching pieces go back and forth. I try to move as much emotion because I understand the bias that can kind of come with it, and I just kind of look at them more just as for them and their personalities and how their personalities are influencing their decisions. Seeing how while people didn't, people might have said, oh, Taylor doesn't spend a lot of time with other people, but she's an introvert. That's how she is. And how that might not be good for the game, right? But then at the same time, her being able to keep that cool head amongst everything is what helped her to get to that position that she is now. So I kind of like to look at things kind of more at how people's personalities and their values and things kind of dictate their decisions. And then the other thing I've discovered too since being in the house is everyone's playing the game, whether it's people who you feel, I guess people have opinions on me. They say I play around a lot, you know? All I know is that was the most stressful laying around I ever did in my life because I was stressed every day. I felt like I was playing the game every day, you know? So that's the other thing I kind of have that understanding, that perspective too, that, you know, everyone's playing the game. Everyone's battling their own, you know, battles, and whether it's through their personality or the way that people perceive them to get through the house. But I find the game much more interesting looking that way, at least for me. And yeah, it's just when I look at things and decisions people make, it's like, oh, okay, you chose to do that. Interesting.
You know, you definitely, and this was like a big thing for me. You did this during Big Brother Celebrity on Twitter. You said something about like the enjoyability for the fandom kind of is dictated by like if their favorites are doing well or not. And you know, I never really thought about that, but like I think this season is a huge example of that. Like the first half, Taylor was like so down bad, and I mean obviously everyone felt bad for her, but like everyone hated this show, cancel Big Brother. The moment she got into Leftovers, nobody hates the show anymore. Like everyone's on board now, and it's really it's an interesting conversation. It's like it makes you think like, oh, okay, well, this is why production sometimes doesn't take Twitter, at least as a platform, as serious as like the other ones. But it's like it's definitely a crazy roller coaster ride. I thought that was an interesting quote from you.
Yeah, I find Twitter so fascinating. I find all these things so fascinating, and I can't say anything. I was part of it. I was a lurker on Twitter. I was a lurker on Reddit. I'm a member of other forums as well too. And I, you know, used to kind of just like have these very hard opinions on things. And then, you know, what was the humbling? Like, I guess what humbled me is when I remember outside the house, I didn't like Andy's game. I didn't like his game. That's what I told myself. And I remember when he took Alyssa out, I was like, why would he take Alyssa out? Alyssa's kind of trying to work with him. Like, Alyssa doesn't like, why would he take her out? I was so confused. Now, when I got in the house, I'm like, Alyssa definitely would have won the game. Like, right. It makes absolute sense to take her out. Now, when I thought about it, and I'm like, oh, it was his own style of gameplay, but he actually played a great freaking game. And I'm like, why doesn't this ever get celebrated? Oh, okay, I get it now. Somewhat, because I'm just like, that's actually a pretty high tier winner in my opinion. But when I saw their reaction to that, and then Shayna was playing a great floater style game, and everyone is like, this is the best I've ever seen. But you know, they seem to downplay, you know, Andy's accomplishments. I'm like, oh, okay, that's when the epiphany came in my head of like, geez, this is. I mean, it really, you know, you change things. It's based on the likability of the person or not. If you like them, you know, you're kind of always going to see that bias. But if you don't, it's going to be kind of hard. Yeah.
I will say, like, one thing that I say all the time is like, especially with players in the house, is that perception is reality. And I think that's something that often comes to play, whether you're inside the house or outside of the house, because even in a lot of like these conversations, it's communicating with someone can interpret it a different way. And so definitely your tweet brings a point about perception, because if someone we don't like is playing the exact same game as someone we do like, then obviously we're not going to have the same reaction. But that's because of biases and how we interpret things, or maybe how we identify with players. Yeah. So I think it's the way you phrased it was beautiful. I remember seeing the tweet and being like, wow, that's so real. I may be a little guilty. I don't tweet like crazy stuff, but you know, so I may be a little guilty.
I mean, there's no like, but we get things through like life experience. Like we get things through experiencing them. I was the same exact way. And then when I experienced it, I'm like, oh, like, okay, I get it now. It's not like I had this knowledge in my head the whole time. It's just that I went through this experience and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Oh, wow. Like, and it's been an epiphany, and it's definitely made this. I was always fascinated by Big Brother, by just the socialness, you know, and you know, throwing 16 people in the house and watching them go crazy. I was always fascinated by it in general. But I feel like these days when I watch the show, I'm I'm really just observing like, a microcosm of America and just how we act and how we react and how we, do things. And like, it's made the show much more interesting, I would say, for me when I look at it that way and when I really try to kind of look at the game like a chess match and not a football game, because football games are no chess matches aren't. Yeah.
For sure.
Naomi saying it best, definitely. Right here it says celebrating Taylor's HOH with another iconic Black woman HOH. Excited to hear from Azah. Which I actually want to start talking about some of the other players real quick before we get to the Taylor HOH. Katie, I'm curious with you, right? So before we move on to anyone, Daniel. So we just lost Daniel. We heard one of the, for at least for the season, I'm not going to say Big Brother history, one of the most interesting speeches. I'm just going to play it real quick.
Yes, please vote to evict me. I'd rather hang out with Nicole and Paloma than any one of you bozos here today. This place is a circus, and you're all a bunch of clowns. It's time to wake up and realize Michael has 5 competitions under his belt. I'm going to repeat that for you guys. Michael has 5 competitions under his belt, and he will win this season if you don't go after him next. A smart super fan like Michael knows, a strong competitor like Monty on the block, you don't change that, nominees, unless you're working together. Figure it out. If you want me to go do your dirty work, vote to save me. Or vote to evict me, and in about 10 minutes, this season just got boring. Back to you.
How do we feel about that?
Well, I think what Daniel, I mean, first of all, this man really thought he did something with that speech. He did. He thought he did. And he thought he was giving Dr. Will. He wasn't. He was giving more Dr. Phil, maybe, I think, than Dr. Will. I don't know what he was doing with that speech. But what he seems to forget is that he's the one that used the veto to basically backdoor his best friend in the house. And he, even in Julie's interview last night, Julie said, do you realize, like, they told you that you didn't have the votes and you still use the veto? And he's like, yeah, no, I don't take any responsibility for it. I'm like, what? Like, it was directly your decision to use the veto that got Nicole out, that put you in this position. I don't think there's any sense into this guy. He keeps saying that he's an old school Big Brother player and has an old school mentality, and isn't here for these big alliances. But I don't see it. I don't see it from him. I don't know. Goodbye. Good riddance. This is a great pre-jury. We'll get to see the game play out in a really fun way, hopefully from here. But bye, Daniel. I don't really know.
I didn't get the clip, but like when Julie Chen was like telling him what the leftovers was, he was like, "Yeah, I knew it. Yeah," and then she was like, "Yeah, this alliance formed because of the mistreatment of Taylor Hale," and then his face dropped. He was like,
"Yes,
yes, yeah."
I
was like, "Oof,"
And when he saw Taylor's goodbye message and he was laughing so hard, Julie was like, is she joking? Because she was just like, why are you laughing? This is not a joke.
Are we talking about this, Katie?
Daniel, I've never been happier to see somebody walk their sorry ass out that door. Oh, and I guess your wish will come true. You don't have to speak to me until finale night.
That's so good.
Is she, Daniel?
Is she joking?
Wow, oh man, I haven't seen something like that in a while. That's old school.
Yeah.
I haven't seen since the days of Brittany Hayes, her goodbye messages that be cracking people up. Man, that is a message.
Yeah, that's old school Big Brother. The way that Taylor has been acting with her speech when she was on the block against Nicole and in her goodbye messages, she's actually really giving the most old school. Her and Michael. Michael's goodbye message was great too, with the idiot sandwich and the 2 slices of bread.
I yelled when I saw the 2 slices of bread and he said, idiot sandwich. I literally lost my mind. I'm like, this is someone who, like, you can tell that he's obviously one of us, at least like to a spectrum, to a degree. But there's something you mentioned, Katie, about Daniel saying that he doesn't like to play with mass alliances and he likes to play old school. And this is something we saw, like we can see in his exit interviews. And the reason why I want to call that out or like highlight this point is because I think it's very frustrating, a little bit of like the hypocrisy that we can see with Daniel, because Daniel was totally fine with being a part of old school. He was totally fine with Nicole being a part of a big alliance. And, her like letting him know about all those things. So it's just, to me, it feels like you don't like things when they don't apply to you. Like, You were totally fine with a mass alliance when you were a part of it. But the moment when Taylor is, it's, oh, I don't like that type of gameplay. I don't like this type of energy, this attitude. But this game has shifted since BB16, and this is kind of the new era that we're in. And I think the way you go about how you a big group or a big alliance is what really shows game strength. For example, obviously Oz is here, but like the cookout having one member outside of their group, that to me is a new innovative way of taking something that has now become the norm of the game. So as much as you want to say you don't like new school Big Brother, you ultimately decided to participate and in an alliance, and then it fell through, and it just so happened that one major alliance got the better of it, got the better of you and your alliance. So I just found that really hypocritical on his part. But you'll say and do what you got to do.
That is true. One thing I find interesting, his speech, I wouldn't start off my speech with an insult. Like, that's number one. I mean, that, And then I'm like, was he, like I said, I don't really watch speech. Was he, like, the other parts of the speech, I feel like those are nice points to make. Was he trying to do that with other people, like with the Taylors, with the Turners, with, like, people that he could get those votes from at all? Or did he just wait to talk?
He really wasn't trying to infiltrate the other side of the house. He really wasn't digging in too deep with the leftovers. Maybe he was working a little bit with Kyle and Joseph, or trying to, because he didn't realize that they were part of it. But he was really focusing his efforts on specifically Terrence, Jasmine, Alyssa a little bit, but really was not digging in too deep with the folks on the leftovers. He tried a little bit with Michael, saying, he would do his dirty work for him. But I mean, he could have done a lot more. I think he could have also really pinpointed that Kyle and Alyssa are clearly in a showmance, and they're a pair, and they should take the opportunity to break the pair up. And he didn't really use that much as his argument. And Josie, I think to your point about the way that the game is being played, and him standing there in the speech and saying that, and what he's been saying throughout the week is that nobody in the house knows how to play Big Brother. I think he's showing that he doesn't really know how to play Big Brother because he can't adapt to the nature of the house. He came in with one mindset, and he was not able to change his mindset out of, I want to play as a solo player, or he had an alliance called the Rogue Rats. He wanted to be a rat in the game, but he didn't adapt to the environment around him. And that was really his downfall.
I think also what's really interesting is in regards to your question, Azah, and kind of to add on to Katie's point, it seemed like his focal point was to talk to Terrence, who he already had. And then he tried to work on Alyssa. But I think a great player doesn't limit themselves to a specific group. I think you should advocate yourself for every single player, because every single person has a vote. Like, not to, say that every vote counts, but it does. Like, that's the reality of the situation. And I think he just fought for Terrence, who he already had, Jasmine as well. They tried to work on Joseph a little, but Joseph went back to the leftovers and pretty much was just like, hey, like, they really don't understand that I'm a part of this. Even though in his DRs he was saying Joseph was, but it was just all over the place. He didn't advocate for Taylor's vote or Turner's. If your pitch is against Monty and Michael, you pitch to everyone but Michael and Monty. Like, he didn't do that. And I felt like that was like bad execution on his part. The game's not over till it's over.
Yeah, so you should be trying to talk to every single person to get the vote. That's like Big Brother 101, definitely. Yeah, and then the other thing I'm thinking about too is like, I know it's like seems surprising that people never seem to be able to like kind of see things, but when you're in like one thing I felt like I observe in the house, I kind of, even though I was part of the cookout, in the house, outside the cookout, and even my perception was here. And what people don't like, one thing I have discovered is that when you're like the underdog or your perception is here, you have so much more self-awareness, and you also have a lot of insight into how things are working and turning. But when you're at a top, it would surprise me how a lot of the more power players in the house in my season would just be completely just blind to just a lot of things, or just had no idea that somebody was coming after them, or had no idea that they were considered this target. When you're in a place and you're comfortable for a while, I think that's a quote somebody said. As soon as you feel comfortable in a Big Brother house, you're in danger. You never feel comfortable. But when you're in a position like Taylor or like Michael, who all my life I had to fighting for vetoes every single week. When you're in that, you're not comfortable. You're constantly like, okay, where am I at here? Where am I at there? But when you're in a place of comfortable power, it's kind of, that can be the downfall for a lot of people, not just of this season, but with the Mirror leaving Game Blindside, with Nicole leaving Game Blindside, pretty much everyone Game Blindside, everyone thought that they were at the top. But we've actually seen that in many seasons beforehand of people who feel comfortable and then
dun dun dun.
I have a question, Isaiah. I'll start to ask you first, actually, because I want to hear your opinion on this. Do you actually think that speeches at the end of the day really do matter or impact the game?
9 times out of 10, the impact is minimal, but I think regardless, you should definitely be trying no matter what. I know that you're talking about in like an elimination stance, but like speeches all in Big Brother history has actually like swayed things like tremendously. Like if you look at Dan's funeral, I mean that's a very generic answer, but like he literally swayed half of the house doing that. If you look at last season of Big Brother, I said last season, Big Brother 20, in the finale votes or whatever, Haley completely switched her vote because of a speech. There's been plenty of times throughout history where people switch because of it. Now, has that really made like a huge difference? Not yet, but like, I mean, never say never. Like you never know if you're going to have that opportunity to be that person, to be the first person to do something. So you always try until like Julie says, "Oh, you're out of here." There's no.
The reason I asked is because Daniel, when he left, he knew that his speech wasn't really going to do much. But there was a video on YouTube that I watched about how speeches can impact the game, even if someone's evicted. So not necessarily change someone's votes. Because, I mean, Azah, you can speak on this. I feel like the moment you guys all sit down in that living room, you already know who you're voting for regardless. Like, there's no way that's going to switch. But someone may say something or put a target on someone's back, and it wake players up and realize maybe that person's a target. So there's influence in that sense for when that person leaves. Do you feel that sentiment, Azah?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel speeches can work in terms of putting a target on somebody else when you're out the door, or things are putting a target. I think that's a great opportunity for that. But I would agree that really honestly, it's more dependent on the work that you're doing beforehand. Mm-hmm. Unless you literally are going to do that speech and literally blackmail the person, like, say something along the lines of like, and I think speeches would really honestly only matter at final 3, I think, when it's that last person and you have something on him that you blackmail him with, maybe. But I don't really think it, like you said, people kind of already have their opinions, and you should kind of already be doing the work beforehand in the house to kind of know where you're sitting at. But a speech is a great opportunity to put a target on someone else. Yeah, and set off some fireworks.
So I actually wanted to start talking about, now that Daniel's out here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time over there. Wanted to talk about Taylor, new HOH, good and bad. I think it's obviously Taylor's HOH just freaking awesome. Everyone's excited, party, whatever. But what I am worried, which I didn't really think about until last night, was the new twist that they just announced about like splitting the house in half, and it seems like they're doing something like Survivor where there's 2 separate like eliminations. Kate, do you want to explain it real quick?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a full understanding of what the twist is or what it's going to be. I think there's a lot of speculation out there, but what Julie essentially said was next week there's going to be 2 games of Big Brother being played simultaneously. The house is going to be split, and they're going to be essentially sequestered away from each other and not able to communicate. So what it sounds like is the house is going to get split, as Isaiah, like you said, kind of like a tribe split in Survivor, and they're each going to maybe have their own HOH and veto comp, and that'll be a double eviction, I guess a triple eviction in that sense, because we'll have the normal eviction and then a double in this new format. But I don't know if we know more details other than that.
And the scary part with that is that Taylor's not going to be able to compete for that HOH next week. So that's technically, regardless of what group she's in, let's say Kyle and Alyssa or Kyle and Michael feel like let's make a move or something. That's completely out of her power. So it's a scary predicament to be in. But I mean, she's definitely going to. It seems like take this opportunity to allegedly take a shot out either Terrence or I believe Indy. Yeah. Yeah.
Indy is first, and then if one of them comes down, Alyssa will be the replacement. From what I understand.
Are you? How you feel about that, Oz? I saw the hands.
Yeah, I wanted that Negro out. I wanted the parents to go home. You need go back to the L train, bro. Go back to the L train. I was ready. I understand. Okay, okay, fine. Indy, listen, yay. No, I want the parents to go home.
Yeah, he's been drawing. He feels like furniture right now. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. I don't know what Terrence is doing. Even like it seems like today, I only caught a little bit of what's been going on, but he seems very grumpy. Him and Jasmine, and they all seem very upset that she's HOH. It is what it is. Win your own competition, But here we are.
Last night after Taylor won the competition, he was following her around like a puppy and was like, when you come to Chicago, I'm your people. If you don't have people in Chicago, like you'll be with me. You'll come to my set. And I'm like, this guy was dragging Taylor not even all week, but specifically last week with Daniel when they were just powwowing together. But this whole season, he's been saying awful, disgusting things about her that are so unwarranted. And now he's scared because she's in power and she knows that he was, riding for Daniel last week. I mean, it was obvious they were together all the time, but she was very upset about that. Last week she was laying in the HOH bed. She gave us some camera talk. And I don't think she's gonna forget that anytime soon, and the way that Terrence specifically made her feel.
They need to keep that same energy. Like I can't stand when they keep that same energy. If you don't like her, stick with don't like her. Like stick with that. Like if the way I am, like I pick a ship and I sail with it. And if I'm on the sinking ship, crap, I'm on a sinking ship, but I'm not gonna jump it. Like I picked that ship, So you pick that ship, sir. So you should stay on that ship. The switch up is just so like, oh my gosh, it's a switch up for me.
But Taylor's karma is real because, to your point, Katie, even 24 hours ago, it seemed like Taylor and Terrence had like a weird thing after Daniel got evicted. I don't know what was shared, but I do know, as someone who was watching the feeds on the live comms, he definitely told her not to speak to him.
Yes.
And then she won. So it's giving Taylor's karma.
Mommy, what you doing?
She was encouraging him on the wall, and he said not to speak to her. I mean,
you got this. he spat in her face, and then look. I don't know.
Yeah. And Azah, to your point, I mean, he was very clear with the ship that he chose last week, and that was already a sinking ship after Nicole. It was a sinking ship once Nicole went to him and said, "You're going home. Sorry, you don't have my vote." And then he decided to just still stay with Daniel and Nicole when Nicole was going, then stayed with Daniel when he was going, when he had so many chances to really work with Joseph and Monty and be at least not part of the leftovers, but he could have been an asset to them and a number for them. And he just chose not to. And it doesn't really make any sense. You're with these two guys who are very strong, who have a good chance of winning competitions. One of them was the HOH when you were their festy bestie. And you're not taking that as an opportunity. Why exactly?
I don't know if he maybe thinks that until today or until yesterday, he thought that with him being situated against two big muscly guys, of course, he sees that as a safe bet of him being able to stay on the block. So he might have felt like he might not need to make those opportunities or make those types of moves. Maybe that's it. But I agree with you completely. But I like you did pick a ship. You kind of did pick that ship to sail, and like the switching back and going back is just like I mean
not a good look.
Not a good look. You know what you should have done? Told Taylor, you know what? If I was gonna be HOH, I would put you up.
I think what's really interesting about Terrence's game is he had a path to work with the leftover, and he just chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
The Amira vote was so apparent. Nicole was talking to him like, "I'm a cop, you're leaving, so I'm just gonna divulge all my secrets, tell you what it is." Daniel, like everyone voted to evict him essentially. Daniel gave him a pity vote, yes, but at the end of the day, the people who chose to keep you, and the reason why you are still currently in this house, except for besides Amara, it's because they voted to keep you, and he chose to, bite the hand that fed him, and now he's reaping the consequences. And what's disappointing is that there's, I don't know, I feel like they haven't really given Terrence any reasons for him to position himself the way he has and to be so adamant about the way he feels about specific house guests. And even last week, people felt like they had Terrence. Monty felt like he had Terrence until Joseph told him how they were pitching to vote out Kyle, I believe. So it's like every time, like, Terrence has people and he just maybe he just doesn't realize it, or he's just not making good gameplay moves, but it's just very frustrating to watch because he's digging his own grave and I don't think he realizes it. And I guess ignorance is bliss.
Well, look, this is the same guy who was willing to. He said, when Amir got nominated, my time is done. You guys keep Amir, vote me out. Remember that.
Right.
Remember that.
Yep.
He's a character.
He's a character.
Is Terrence getting an invite to a house shop event, or is it going to get lost in the mail?
So I am. You all might get mad at me, but I don't. Number one, I don't give out invitations to people. People DM me and say, "Hey, can I come?"
Okay.
So if that happens, yes, you can come, and I have no problem being cordial with people. I don't have any I'll be cordial with you and all that stuff. Am I going to go out of my way? No, but I don't have any problem being cordial to them. But I ain't gonna lie, I'm really working on myself. So, I'm like, yo, I gotta keep it right here. Yeah. But that means to be cordial.
He could DJ. I mean, hey.
Karaoke, someone.
She got a good DJ. We good.
No karaoke. No, we go.
Okay, so outside of Taylor, you got Kyle. He seems kind of squirrely right now. He seemed like he really wanted to turn on the leftovers, but things didn't work out, and he crawled right back into the pot he was in. So it's like, what's going on with him there? I don't. Oh, Katie dropped. She'll be right back. But what's going on there, Josanne? I don't know what his plan is going on.
So essentially, Kyle wanted to. He essentially to Michael that he was afraid that the people of color would work together, aka Cookout 2.0. And so he went to Michael during his HOH, pretty much appealing to him as, white man to white man. And I guess try to pitch potentially getting Monty and Joseph out. And it would have worked if Alyssa would have kept her mouth shut, to be quite honest. I mean, Michael felt like he was okay with either or, because he would have been HOH, he wouldn't have voted. So technically, if the vote doesn't go his way, it's not his fault. He was supposed to have the number. So Michael's covered. But Kyle's the one who is really essentially putting his game out on the line. And for reasons I believe that are his personal bias, but it is what it is. I don't know him personally, but the numbers are there. The math is mathing. So, it is what it is. And essentially Alyssa the problem was everyone pitched this idea to Michael. And Michael got kind of worried about that idea because then he's like, well, if I let this happen, I'll probably be at the bottom. Also, Alyssa kind of divulged some stuff to other people. I believe it was Joseph that kind of put these alarms in his head. So Kyle spoke to the cameras and said, sorry, Alyssa, I have to stick with the leftovers. I hope you're not mad at me. But you kind of put me in this situation. So his loyalty to the leftovers is a big old question mark. I don't know how sincere and genuine it is. Obviously, his reasons is something that we debated about last week, sorry. But now I think he's sticking with the leftovers. I think he's in a good position, but I think Joseph is actually in a better position than him. So I think how he navigates jury management will be very telling on his game so far, because I think he's played the middle, but he's done it in a way that hasn't been very commendable.
And Azah, I'm curious. I wanted to ask you this. Because we're not only in America, but we also saw this in Canada as well. The impact of the cookout is like scaring anyone that's like, there's going to be a Black Alliance or POC alliance or something. Have you guys ever talked about that? I'm curious. Like, dang, like
We
because I
got
know.
in the house. We were like, oh my gosh, the black people after us are gonna hate us. They're going to be heated. Like we were just like, oh my gosh, we just ruined it for them. But what was in our head was, okay, we really want to make sure that this happens. So unfortunately, like we just kind of got to make it work, and it's gonna have to be worth it. Yeah, I mean, okay, so this is one thing. Somebody brought this up that I kind of blew my mind when I heard it. Y'all remember when Obama became president? Like,
Yeah.
flowers and sunshine, and life was good and hope changed. It's great. It was just wonderful. And then within that season, then Trump became president, and it was just like. And I'm not going to speak on them as political leaders. I'm speaking on the climate of America in that time. The climate in America was great. It was awesome. It was everything. The climate changed. It got so much more dark when once this happened. And it seems like, I don't know if it's a type of balance type of thing that like when something swings in one pendulum, it can just swing the other way like crazily. And that's what I saw with BB Can with like, while everyone was very happy or voiced that they were happy about the cookout and what they did, the pendulum just swings in the other direction of just trying to dismantle that even any type of just getting paranoid or dismantle any type of or quench out any type of spark of that happening. We didn't only see that in BB Can, we saw that in the Challenge USA as well too. And we're seeing it here. Like do I agree with it? Absolutely not. But am I surprised? I'm not really surprised. I mean, because the writing was on the wall with BB Can.
Yeah. Katie, I wanted to see, so with Kyle doing all this mess, and I feel like eventually he's going to get him caught up because I know Michael did his little rant where he was like, Kyle and Joseph are trying to like take control of this game, talking about Dreyvos. It seems like Joseph and Kyle kind of like swap spots. So like it seems like Joseph. I mean, is this wrong? Is Joseph in the best spot currently, or is that a hot take?
I think Joseph is in a great spot because I think people really do not believe that he's working with the leftovers. And I think he does a really great job of hanging out with, the girls, with Jasmine and Indy, and they love him. And I think, Terrence, I think, sees him. Even Daniel in his exit press today was like, oh, Joseph's my brother, and I can't wait to see him when we get. He just didn't really realize. I guess, he knew who the leftovers were, but I guess he didn't see Joseph as a power player in that or as calling the shots. And I think he does a really good job of balancing. But there is going to be a time, I think, that comes relatively soon where he's going to need to decide who he's going to, or show his cards a little more. I think we know who he's going to stick with, but I think there will be a time where he has to show his cards. It could be this week. It could be next week if he's in power and we're broken up the house into two. He might have to show where his loyalties lie. So I think it's kind of a house of cards, right? I think Kyle's house of cards maybe fell last week a little bit, especially I think he's just really getting caught up with the Alyssa of it all, and he's really kind of throwing his game away for that. He was doing really well before he really got caught up with her. And now it's like every day it feels like he's flip-flopping in between what he wants to do. He wants to get Alyssa out. He wants to keep her. He trusts her. He doesn't trust her. He wants to talk game. He doesn't. So I think Joseph now kind of is edging him out a little bit, but I think we'll see how long it lasts from Joseph's perspective.
Interesting comments in the chat real quick. Joseph Boza says, that's why I liked Oz in her season. She was one side and didn't switch when the house changed. And then Seth Tron says, I feel like the leftovers are getting tired of Joseph getting to play both sides, and that only benefits him. And I agree. And I think you're right, Katie, when you're saying that next week, with this whole twist happening, just like Survivor, it's going to force people to kind of like betray people, especially if there's going to be like a full side of just leftover people with like no Alyssa, no Jasmine, no Indies, none of that. It's going to force people to like break bonds. It's going to make people show cards. So I'm really excited and nervous, specifically for Taylor, but I'm really excited to see how that all pans out.
Or well, let's think about the scenario where it might, and I don't know exactly how many people would be on the side, but let's say Joseph is on one side, wins HOH, and there's Michael and Brittany and Jasmine and Indy, and he puts up Jasmine and Indy. Everyone's going to know at the end of the day that he's working with Michael and Brittany. So is he going to throw his game away to keep this middle ground, or is he going to stick with the leftovers? I think he's really going to have to make a decision. There's opportunity for him to really have to show exactly where his loyalties lie, and I worry that next week for Joseph it's going to be the start of maybe his downfall, like last week was for Kyle.
Well, quick question. I'm sorry that I'm not well versed on some things.
No, please.
But my question for Joseph is: is he aware of where is his loyalty? His loyalty is to leftovers at the end of the day.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, him talking to Indy and him keeping up those relationships are what is able to conceal the leftovers, and it's what able to do that. At the end of the day, like if he does HOH, he does with HOH. Objectively, I think it makes absolute sense for him to just put up Jasmine and Indy, take one of them out, and only people he literally has to worry about are Terrence and somebody else. And out of everyone else in the house that is winning HOHs and winning things like that, if he wins HOH next week, he puts those two up. As long as one of those doesn't win HOH, he can literally sit behind and like act like nothing's happening and just win the 6 because. I think it's. I don't know. That's how I see it. So even though he is playing both sides, like if he knows where his loyalties lie at the end of the day, and he makes sure to get one of those out of the house, I think he's okay. I think he's okay.
That's a great point, actually, too, because you're right. There really are not that many left on the other side of the house, as Michael lovingly calls them, the convenience store. There's really not that many of them left. And Daniel was really probably their anchor in competitions, which we know anybody can win any comp. We've seen Jasmine win comps. We've seen, even Terrence almost won OTEV. Like anybody is capable of anything. We don't know what these comps are going to be. But when you look at the physical makeup, if these comps do start getting more physical and less of a crapshoot, the clear side you would want to side with is the leftovers, because Michael's won 5 comps already. You want him on your side.
To be fair, also with your scenario, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, because even in your scenario, if he wins HOH, he can easily just put up one leftover and one person on the other side, say, hey, I don't want X amount of person to think that we're close. And the reality of the situation is, if let's say Terrence leaves, that'll leave Jasmine, Indy, and Jasmine, Indy, I believe that's it. Alyssa. So if they're split into 2 sides, odds are 2 of those 3 women are leaving. Like if everything in a perfect world for the leftovers. So really the only one person you would have to deal consequences with is whoever is left standing. So, and in my opinion, it might be Jasmine, because I don't think they see too much of threat value due to her injury. So in reality, he wouldn't have to suffer too many consequences short term. Long term with jury management, I don't know how that's going to look like. But the frustration, I don't even feel like the frustration is coming from leftovers. I think it's coming from Michael and Brittany, because they talk about it constantly. I don't think Monty really cares. He's like, you're giving me this information, brother. Thanks. And he's always like, oh, it amazes me every time you come here and you tell us about this side. But I think Michael should tune into the fact that they might be more mad at Joseph than him, because they might feel like Joseph owes them something. And when they get revealed about the leftovers, as jury members start to come in, it might not bode well for him. Jury is everything. Jury management is everything.
So it's 4 of them currently right now. 4 of them that are outside. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Chaos. So there you go. Yeah. Lastly, I guess out of all the people, I mean, Turner sitting in the middle, Monty sitting in the middle, people looking at him, but he's relatively safe still. And then you still got Jasmine and Indy doing Jasmine and Indy. They're not really doing much. What was the food that she used for a confessional this week? It went from blanc butter beans, apple pie, rack-a-rib.
Right.
Not sure what the
chicken wing in an air fryer was one.
At this point, I think, because I love production. One thing I'll tell you, I love production. Whenever I got in there, it's like a good kiki, but they know exactly what they're doing. It's the same thing to me last year, constantly bringing up Xavier. I had a really good friend in there, so that was my outlet to talk about how cute he was. And I mean, all of those make it scream. Like, somebody in production is just like, name another pie that you used to like, and probably cracking up. But she's like, how about damn ribs? Here's another stuff, mac and cheese, and they're just probably eating it up, just like, and probably go like, you know what, like just keep going. And it's just funny. I think exactly what they're doing. Well, they're really setting us up. They be setting us up.
Yeah. They're like, well, what's the next food? A lime pie, brighter than the lime pie. Use that. You know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's all she's really given us right now, other than the injury. I mean, Jasmine's being Jasmine. Don't know when her time's going to come, but I mean, here we are. It seems like she's not leaving this week.
Jasmine can take a Christmas strategy, bro.
Yeah, basically, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Strategy, get right there. And I hate when people say, "Oh, it's a waste to use it on her. It's a waste to." No, it's not a waste. That is a spot in Final Three.
Yeah.
Like when people say, "Oh, people are playing more like don't sell games. Oh, it's a waste." No, you're not wasting. That's a whole threat in itself because
Absolutely.
people are continually overlooking you. And most of the time, they are very aware of the fact that they're not a threat, and they can do whatever they want. And so, yeah, no, Jasmine that's a dark horse, and that's an absolute threat that can get down there and wrangle up some folks.
I also think she is kind of like the head of the other side. If there is another side, there's only a few people left, but she really is the one that keeps them all together. They're always talking to her in bed and in that room. So yeah, I think that she's a social threat. Even though we might not agree with a lot of things she says, they definitely are all hanging around her and spending time with her. So I would say she would be probably my priority out of that whole side of the house. Maybe her or Alyssa because of the Kyle factor, but Indy, I think, could go at a certain point, and Terrence too. But Jasmine, I feel like would be the priority for me.
If we're being like, the thing about Jasmine, Isaiah, I said this last week, so you weren't there, but I said that Jasmine embodies what modern BB is, very like almost a caricature of what it used to be, heightened, animated to an extreme. But I think the issue is every exit interview, even though a lot of people complain about Jasmine's lack of like social cues when like she's asking for things, or not asking, but demanding rather is the right verb. I think the issue with that is that it's going to rub people the wrong way. But everyone has left the house saying, I love Jasmine. Jasmine, I mean, maybe they're saying that for press, but Jasmine doesn't get prompted. Honestly, Taylor gets prompted every single time.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think that's the biggest threat, honestly. Because I think all of the leftovers are going to start shooting at each other. And if she is still there, she'll make it to the end. And they'll think all she did was, scoot around all over the place and not do too much, blah, blah, blah. And so if they bring her in the final two and everyone's leaving the house feeling like they love Jasmine, she'll have the vote strictly because they love her. And that's a part of it. Oh, my God. No. I didn't even think that into account. Oh no. Okay, Tamar counts for me. She's our first black woman. Yeah. But yeah, I think Jasmine is while she would not be my first pick as a winner. I do think that she has a lot of undervalued content or worth or value within the house for the other side, who will make up the jury, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, Azah, to your point, I don't know if you ever seen Tyson's Survivor season, but I remember he was like, I want to hurt myself on purpose so I can make it far in the game. And then he got hurt and used that as strategy to get far. So I was like, oh, that's hilarious. But yeah. Do we have anything else to say, guys? I think we basically went through anything important that the cast have been going through.
Yeah, I think the only thing for me is something I think, Josie, that you had mentioned, that the leftovers are going to start shooting at each other. And I'm really interested to see how the house shakes out from that. I feel like right now, if that starts to happen, Taylor and Turner are probably the safest in between the shots being fired between Kyle, Michael, and Brittany, maybe with Alyssa and Monty and Joseph on the other side, maybe with some other folks if there are some other folks left over. So I'm really interested to see how the game starts playing out as like I said, as Michael lovingly calls in, the convenience store starts thinning out a little bit, especially after this triple. Who's gonna fall in the middle and start missing the shots that are being taken and really make it to the end? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there.
I think I agree with you. I do think that Taylor and Turner are in the middle. I think it'll be, and this is what I would like to see from certain players. I think you can use anything and everything within the Big Brother compounds as a game and as moves. And I think one big thing is Taylor, about how she's been treated in the house. people recognize and know for this for a fact that these women and some of the men don't like Taylor. So to me, I would use that and go, they're not going to cast a jury vote for her because of their personal feelings within the house. And I would rather bring her to the end than like Michael or Kyle, who are seemingly in the middle, even Joseph. So I'm interested to see how people are gonna look at Taylor in that regards, because I think right now you should be worried about who will beat you in the end because you're in the jury phase. So it shouldn't be necessarily about who's your like bestie, but who you can. I mean, we all came here for some money. Let's be real. You know, y'all can be friends after this, Kiki, if y'all really about it, but it ain't paying the bills. The friendship is not paying the bills. You know, taxes are due. School fees need to be paid. So it's just like, I think I'm interested to see how people are going to start targeting them and for what reason. I think what reason will be the biggest part. Because if you're just targeting someone who hasn't won competitions but they look big, I'm sorry, friend, it don't back it up. Like if you sitting at the end with zero like comp points, but you're built as a truck, like it don't mean nothing to me because you don't have the proof to back it up. So I think that would be a big thing, and I think if people target Taylor, it's just because they don't like her. Because I don't think she's going to get the jury votes. I don't think she's getting Jasmine's vote or Indy's, which is unfortunate because I love her, but like these women don't.
I could be delusional, but I think even with us being in the jury phase, is a lot more gameplay. I remember, and I always think about my experiences and like, okay, and see, like, I remember in the beginning of the jury phase, I was just like, there is no way that I'm going to be able to win this game. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I didn't think, I was like, there was no one who I could sit next to. I didn't see how I could get my votes and everything like that. But then as the game went on, I started to understand my profile. I started to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to be that, whatever bombastic player. But if I do the little things that I'm doing, I'm going to at least have a case. And I went from really truly not believing I could even had a chance to truly believing, even with the person who was considered the best in the game, that I had a shot against him if I got myself to final two and did there. There's a lot of game left. I know I remember during that time, I really felt like I was like, I'm going to be the first one out the door. When 6 comes, I already know everyone wants to get rid of me, and that didn't happen. I got through. So I have hope for her. This is someone who week 1 was just like, we were like, baby, just get out the house and come and give me a hug. Like, just get out from, and look where she is now. She's in a great place. She got a lot of game left. She's very smart. I want her to kind of like do this, not really ruffle any feathers, and just sit back and just chill and let everybody do whatever and just mind her business and like continue to keep up her social relationships. That likability is going to start to come back, and she's going to start to have those juries and jury. And then we'll have them.
That's the goal. I did want to add to something real quick. There was something you mentioned earlier about the cookout's influence on like later games. And I think for me, prior to the cookout, anytime there were Black people in a house together, it was just automatically assumed that they would work together. Yeah. And then prior to your season, we did have Bailey and Davon, but it just got to the point where they didn't even know each other and they just assumed automatically from jump. Obviously, they ended up working together, and that happened. So to a degree, yeah, they were right. But it's like when people force kind of that shift to happen, it's like some people are just like, might as well. And it happens that way. And I even BB Can 9, like LaToya and all of these people, they weren't necessarily working together, just those 3, but they would purposely be so far away from each other to not put a target on themselves, and still people put them together. People will always put Black people together. So at the end of the day, for me, it just felt like, yeah, people can blame the cookout all they want, but people have been using our biases against us from time. So this is not new news. This is nothing new. And so I think it's kind of ridiculous to just blame it on the cookout, because the cookout ate down and they executed what some of us have been dreaming about, to have a first Black winner. And so I think it's unfortunate that people are turning this really good, important message and changing it into something, or using it or weaponizing it against other people in different situations. And so now, you know, if any other Black person gets cast on the show, I hope that they have that self-awareness of, you know, people are always going to have this bias regardless of the cookout or not. And so that has to be an extra layer of the game that I have to navigate, which is unfortunate because, you know, we would like it for all of us to be fair. Yeah. But, you know, life's never been fair for a Black person. So, and Big Brother, like you said, is a microcosm of real world. And, you know, us Black people, that's why we have Black excellence. We just work through it. So hopefully Miss Taylor Hale can take that crown and, you know, rep for the Black women. But, you know, it's not the cookout's fault. And, you know, we just work and we grind, and that'll make another Black winner so much more excellent to overcome that adversity in addition to what we already have to deal with in a general sense.
That's a very important, beautiful point. Wow.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. My goodness. But all right. That's a good place to end the podcast for today. All right, Azah, I want to say thank you again just for coming on. We really appreciate you and, you know, appreciate our friendship and everything. You're awesome. You have anything you want to plug, anything you got going on, you can drop it.
Okay, well, you can follow me on Instagram, Wonderful World of Oz, on my Twitter and my TikTok. I'm Azah_Awasum. I don't know why I'm doing my TikTok. I don't post any videos on there. But there's that. And then just keep in mind, keep looking and plugged on my socials. I'll be announcing very, very, very soon House Chops, which is going to be in a Midwest location. It's looking to be either Chicago or Atlanta. And then the finale for House Chops in LA. So we have 2 watch parties coming up.
All right. Thank you so much. And I like usual, you're always welcome over here if you ever want to come over. But Josi, what's going on in the podcasting world?
Yes. So obviously I podcast here every Friday with Isaiah and Katie. And when Lance pulls up, you know, we always have a good key, some back and forth. But other than that, I am the host of Just So Damn Messy, where we cover your favorite reality TV shows. Love Island UK just ended. So, you know, me and my bestie Karina, we got our tea. We spilled our thoughts. So the reunion just happened. A lot on that side of the Twitter streets, a lot is happening. So, you know, tune in for that if you're ever interested. Obviously, we might cover F-Boy Island. So for the girls who are watching that, get into it. It's a gift.
What?
F-Boy Island, girl, get into it. It's messy this season. It's a gift.
Wow. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm flabbergasted. Wow. But
it's a show. Get into it, Miss Ma'am. We are probably going to cover that at the end of the season for sure. And if you like a little bit of spooky, suspenseful shows, we're covering PLL's Original Sin. And probably, I Know What You Did Last Summer. It came out a few months ago, but the show is giving, so we're going to talk about it. But you guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, JosianeXNM, JosianeXNM. Sorry, every time I spell my name out, I have to think of Carrie, so it makes me hesitate. But yeah, I tweet about reality TV. I give you the good tea, you know, so give me a follow. But that's it for me.
What's that show streaming on?
Which one?
The last one you're just talking about. I don't know the name of it. I saw
I Know What You Did Last Summer?
The one with Tito.
That one is Prime Video.
Got it. Okay. All right. Katie, what's going on?
Yes, you can drop me a follow on Twitter at RealSlimKatie. You can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/RealSlimKatie with an underscore at the end. Had an amazing charity stream last week. We were able to raise over $4,000 for reproductive rights and abortion rights for those in states where those rights have been restricted or taken away. That link is still active if you were not able to make that stream on Saturday, so you can find that on my Twitter if you would like to donate. It's a really great cause. We're donating to the Bridget Alliance, who helps those in need of services and healthcare across state lines if they need to do that. So they provide transportation services, they provide logistical help. So really, really great cause. You can also listen to me here on Silent Podcast, covering all things Big Brother with Isaiah, Josie, and Lance. And you can find me with Carrie on TJ Hates Quitters, our Challenge USA podcast, starring the amazing Azah, who we were just giving her praise before we started. So impressed and amazed by everything you were able to do this season. Seriously, this show is, I think it's blowing us out of the water with how good it is. I don't think we really knew what to expect, and it's great. It's the best challenge product we've had in a really, really long time. And we also cover all things Real Housewives. So we were on hiatus for 2 weeks while Carrie just had some life stuff going on. So we will be back this Sunday with the Cool Water Show. We'll be celebrating our 30th episode. We're going to have an adult beverage to celebrate and talk all things about the last couple of weeks of Real Housewives that we've missed. So check us out there. And Azah, thank you so much for being here. It was such a great conversation. It was just a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you. This was so much fun. And I'm definitely going to be keeping tune with both of your podcasts because I'm a huge Real Housewives fan. I need to learn about this F4 Island. Like, we got plenty of them here in DC, but I'm still learning. I'm very intrigued.
Well, Azah, you're more than welcome if you ever want to come talk Real Housewives.
Absolutely.
We cover them all. We watch every city, so you're more than welcome to join us anytime.
I'm an Atlanta girl. And
Oh, we love it. Yes, Potomac is coming back soon. We just got a release date, so anytime.
All right. Real quick, I also want to say apparently nominations came in. Spoiler alert, but Taylor has nominated Terrence and Indy as we thought. But yeah, lastly, you can, if you want to follow me and anything I'm doing, you can find me on all platforms. 8 Ball Bangers, literally the number 8, then Ball Bangers. You can find me here on Silent Podcast talking about Big Brother, as they said, every single week, as well as talking about movies with Mark Levy at the Movies Podcast, and also talking about Marvel content with Jake Schwartz every now and then. Oh yeah, Survivor Philadelphia, that's still going on every Tuesday. It's been freaking wild. So you can check that out. I've been doing exit interviews with all the players, and me, Matt Scott, are on there. If you're familiar with him, it's a very fun time. And lastly, you can find me at RHAP. I was there last night with Rob and Taryn and Kirsten, and we were breaking down everything that happened last night. But there you go. So until next week, where we hopefully champion Taylor and hopefully don't have her eliminated during this crazy twist. We will see you guys next week. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.